Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. It's your boy, Nolan Hawkeye Anthony here. I hope you guys are having a fantastic week wherever you may be and however you may be listening. This is the NHA Podcast, of course, and we got a ton of stuff to get into this week. To start off with, Joe Wieskamp, is he going to go pro? It certainly looks like it. Brody Brecht, same situation. Is he going to go pro with regards to Major League Baseball? And name, image, and likeness is a huge topic of late with the new 9-0 Supreme Court ruling. We're going to get into exactly what that is and how it affects the Iowa Hawkeyes. More specifically, somebody like Jordan Bohannon and players like that. And perhaps later we'll talk about the 12-team playoff. But before I get going here, I want to introduce my partner, Dean. Dean, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic today. Let's
good
talk
to hear
some
from
Hawkeyes,
you.
buddy.
Yeah, it's good to hear from you. We did take last week off. There wasn't a ton of stuff to dive into, so we kind of went over and took that stuff towards this week, which I'm happy we ended up doing that. Dean, I gotta say, with regards to the Joe Wieskamp and the NBA, you know this because I've said it to you many times. I've been saying it for a long time. Joe Wieskamp is an NBA player. I mean, if he is not an NBA player, I don't know what is. I was holding hope that he was going to come back to the Iowa Hawkeyes. And my thinking behind it was if it's not a guarantee that Joe would be drafted, the best option would be to come back. Because by coming back, you'll be the best player on an Iowa roster. There's a good chance you'll make the NCAA tournament and you'll just improve your draft stock. But quite frankly, Dean, at the NBA Combine with a 42-inch vertical leap, he's already done that in a 4.5% body fat. And I don't really care much about the body fat thing. What I care about more so is his near equal length to Luka Garza, and he's about 3 inches shorter, and having a 42-inch vertical leap. Remember when everybody would say Joe Wieskamp is they used to use a phrase, and I can't remember what it is, but they would say he's under the radar athletic, or there was an actual phrase that they would say. I can't remember exactly what it is, but what the phrase meant was he doesn't look like he would be athletic, but he is. And you and me would always say, no, he's just athletic. He's just an athletic guy. Dean, I think it's looking less and less likely that he's going to come back to the Hawkeyes, and that bums me out. And on a side note, and then I'm going to, I'm curious what you think on this. With how all the attention that Joe Wieskamp is getting, and then obviously, Luka Garza just looking fantastic in the videos that his dad Frank puts up. I gotta say, it's pretty shocking that Iowa did not go further than the round of 32, and disappointing, quite frankly, because it's obvious that they were good enough to move on, and they just didn't do it. So that part is disappointing. But yes, Dean, it does not look like Joe Wieskamp is going to come back. I do think that there is slightly a chance, as he has not said fully yet one way or another, but I do think it's starting to look less and less likely. How are you reading things? Do you think he's going to go declare for the NBA? If he does, do you think he's a first-round player? What is your gauge on this, partner?
I have heard, this is kind of shocking, but I heard some people talking about that he's possibly a first-round player.
Wow.
If that's the case, this dude's not coming back. I don't think he's coming back either way, because I think he's got a clear path to the NBA, whether or not he makes an NBA team this year, or for the next season. Because he can go the G League and work his way in, much like Tyler Cook did. And
Great point.
and we know where Tyler Cook is. He finished the season strong, I believe, with the Detroit team.
Correct.
Pistons?
The Detroit Pistons.
Yeah. And so, after 3 years of trying, Tyler Cook finally landed in a spot that he's happy, and he's actually contributing. And Joe may have to go that route, and Joe may want to pull the trigger now so that he don't get any older. I don't see. Honestly, I don't see anything that Joe can do next year that would enhance his draft status. I think he's where he's at, and from all the stats I've seen, it looks like he's outperforming our other guy, Garza, Luka.
You may be right on that.
And this is crazy. 4% body fat. Tell me how that dude does that. I mean, is he just pumping iron, or is he just plain skinny and not putting any food in his belly?
You know what? That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't think, obviously, he's going to play at a 4% body fat all the time. You need to have some weight on you, but that's certainly a good question. I will say, Dean, I think you're absolutely correct. I don't think I agree with you. I don't think he can improve his draft stock any higher than it is now. A lot of people say that about a lot of players, and usually I disagree with that. Usually I do think that there is a path towards improving the draft stock, but the reality with Joe Wieskamp is, even with a season, if he were to come back to Iowa and have a season similar to Luka Garza, what Luka Garza had this year, I don't think Joe Wieskamp would all of a sudden become a lottery type pick. I really don't. I don't think either. The highest he is being somewhere between pick 15 and below. And I think that's as high as he would get. Dean, were you shocked by his numbers? Even for people like you and myself who have thought he was athletic before this, were you still surprised by some of the testing numbers that you saw?
Yes, I was. I really was. The 42-inch, vertical jump. I mean, that's crazy. And then you notice that they didn't post Garza's vertical jump on here, so makes you wonder what his vertical jump was. But hey, did you see that without shoes, Wieskamp is only 6'5", but at 204 pounds, that dude is too skinny. He needs to put some muscle on him.
I agree. I listen. People were saying, a lot of Iowa folks were saying, if there's one thing, it was the athleticism with Joe Wieskamp, and that's not the case. What it actually is what you just said. His playing weight, and what I think an NBA playing weight would probably be about 210, 215, especially if you're going to be a shooting guard / small forward, because keep in mind, when he gets to the NBA, he will have to guard guys like LeBron James and Jimmy Butler, and those guys check in above 225 pounds. So there's no doubt about it, Dean, that he is going to have to add some weight, and whether it's muscle mass, some fat, or a combination of both. He needs to do it. I'm not really worried about his athleticism or the skill level that he brings to the game. I've always said he can score at within all three levels, from the 3-point line, mid-range, at the basket. Obviously, he's better at one than he is at, for instance, he's better at shooting threes than he is at maybe finishing at the rim. But he's good at all three. He can dribble the basketball. He's a decent passer. It's funny, Dean, I'm not sure that he does anything great, but I would say he's a good shooter. I don't know if I would say great. Peter Jok, to me, was an example, or CJ Frederick would be an example of a great shooter. He's still a good shooter, so I'm not slighting him. But what Joe does is, and this is why I've seen him as an NBA player since day one, is the size that he has and all the things that he does good or above average, when it comes to all the aspects of the game of basketball: defending, shooting, getting to the rim, helping your team, being a good teammate. And you're not going to find somebody better than that. Let me ask you, Dean. It's not for sure that he's gone, even though we think it's likely. And I will say, folks, to be honest, I was hoping, or I was trying to, like a week ago, I was trying to find some argument to say to Dean why I thought Joe Wieskamp was going to come back, but I just don't see a path for that. I really don't. But how does Iowa replace him, Dean? How does this Iowa basketball team, who, by the way, is considered by at least half of the publications as an NCAA tournament team next year? I would say half of the publications see Iowa as an NCAA tournament team next year. And I think most of them that think Iowa is a NCAA tournament team are thinking that without Joe Wieskamp. It's not with Joe Wieskamp, it's without. They're assuming that he's gone. So I think that's interesting. But how do you think Iowa replaces Joe Wieskamp, Dean?
I think it's going to be, honestly, I think this team is going to be overall more athletic next year.
Sure.
And they're going to be really tall. They're going to be a tall team, much like the Oregon team that we got whooped by. I was kind of jealous that we didn't have that, but didn't realize that we're going to have that next season. But how do we replace him? The guy who's going to play the number 3, drum roll, please, in his last season as the Iowa Hawkeye will be Keegan Murray.
Nice. Yeah, listen, Dean, I agree with you there. I think actually the person, I think both Keegan and I always think it's Kenyon, but Kenyon is their dad's name, I believe. So it's Chris and Keegan. I see them replacing Joe, not perfectly, but collectively. Collectively, I think that whoever fills that role, whether it's a combination of Tony, Aaron, and Chris, or Keegan, whatever it is, collectively, I do think that they will be able to at least make a dent in replacing Joe Wieskamp. But make no mistake about it. I mean, I can't tell you the last time Iowa has had a guy that has been as solid from the get-go as Joe Wieskamp. I mean, as soon, and this is why Iowa fans probably got overly frustrated with him, is, you would see this crazy high ceiling, and from day one, you saw just how talented he was. And I don't think he got the credit for just how much he did outside of scoring for the Iowa basketball team. And Dean, it's going to be hard to replace him. I'm not going to lie about that. I actually, in my eyes, I think it's going to be harder to replace Joe than it was replacing Tyler Cook. And on a side note, I'm nervous about the NCAA tournament, Dean. I just don't know if a team like Iowa can afford losing two guys such as Joe Wieskamp and Luka Garza. What's your early read on that? Do you think Iowa can overcome it, or what? By the way, Iowa got a commitment from 4-star Desante Bowen. I put that analysis on my YouTube channel. You guys can check that out. Sorry, Dean, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, I think we can overcome it. I kind of like the pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be like, like everything went through Luka Garza this last year, or the last 2 years, actually. Everything went through him. This is not going to be, it's going to be different this year. We're not going to score as many points.
Yeah.
But this is going to be a collective team effort. And I think you're going to see the ball move around a little bit. And I think the defense it can't help but improve. I mean, the guys that are going to be earning the starting roles this year were our better defensive players.
Right.
All the fans knew it. I mean, even the casual fan knew that when the subs came off the bench, the defense got better. The scoring went down, but the defense got better. And I think these guys are going to step up and score. I mean, because Joe Toussaint wasn't scoring as much, Aaron Eulis and stuff, but they weren't in there to score.
Right.
They were in there to play defense and try to So this team is not. Yes, losing Joe Wieskamp hurts a lot. However, I think there's enough pieces to the puzzle that I believe that this team will make some noise. Now, keep in mind though, how do I say this? This
Just
team
say
could
it.
This team could be even better, but I see this team kind of similar to as the women's team was when they lost.
Yes.
Was it Megan Gustafson?
Megan Gustafson or Gustafson. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the girl the following year. Yeah. So that team wasn't highly thought of, but they just stuck it with the grind. They grinded out.
Yeah.
And we know that they got to the Sweet 16, so they overachieved. And this could be next year's team because we know that this year's team underachieved.
Yes.
There isn't any fan alive, or even the coaches or the players will tell you that they underachieved. They should have at least been a Sweet 16 team. And granted, they got in a bad bracket. I mean, they got in a very tough bracket, but still, it doesn't matter. They didn't get the job done.
Yes.
And like you said, it was disappointing considering what we're losing for talent this year.
Yeah.
That this team way underachieved, but I got a feeling there'll be next year's women's team where they're gonna have times where they're gonna lose some games, but I think they're gonna stick with the grind, make the NCAA tournament maybe as a 7th or 8th seed somewhere in there, and then just show some teams and make some noise. I mean, I know it's a lot of early prediction, and I'm drinking a lot of Kool-Aid here, but and you know what? And in all the interviews Fran McCaffrey's done, he loves this team. He loves his next year's team.
He does.
Listen,
go ahead.
We haven't seen what's his name? Akabakcha? How do you say his name? The new center?
Yeah, it's Agundale, Josh Agundale. That's his name. And Riley Mulvey.
Yeah.
And Philip Rabraka.
Okay. Yeah, Baraka. We haven't seen what these guys can do yet. I mean,
right.
And by all means, it sounds like Agundale is getting there. It sounds like he's getting there. He's getting in shape, and it sounds like he's picking it up. And so, but I think the idea is to have him play in reserve next year. So, but anyway.
Yeah, listen,
Dean,
I think
it's going to be exciting. It's really going to be exciting.
I totally agree.
As long as you like defense, guys,
the way that I view it is that next year's team will be similar to and you already said this, but similar to the team that lost Tyler Cook. A lot of Iowa fans did not see a path for Iowa to be good again. But how they were good is guys that had smaller roles the year before stepped into bigger roles, and that happens all the time in hoops. You have guys that take on bigger roles, and Dean, I absolutely agree with you that they're going to be better defensively, and I don't think you can minimize the additions of a guy like Philip Rabraka. I think he's going to be great, and I think that this Iowa team will be gritty, and it would be an excellent thing if Iowa can make the NCAA tournament for what would have been without COVID, or I'm trying to remember what people nickname COVID. I think they call it. Well, I'm not going to say what I think they call it, but without the COVID. Iowa, it would be 3 straight years that they made the NCAA tournament. And that is a good goal for the Iowa Hawkeyes, especially with, Connor McCaffrey saying that, if there's one thing that he would improve, it would be the facilities. Folks, listen, Iowa does not have, when you think of top tier programs with all these top tier aspects that are outside of the actual performance on the field, I don't know if Iowa cuts the list all the time, especially in basketball. So, Dean, I'm telling you, they need to just hire a group of people who their only job is to raise money. That's all it is, to raise funds, have dinners with Ashton Kutcher, have dinners with Tom Arnold, listen to his political stuff and just, kind of go with it. So, all right, guys, I want to move on here. And, it's to me, this is all of this it does tie in to one another. Joe Wieskamp leaving what would be considered early for the NBA and the name, image, and likeness. But really quickly, I want to hit on Brody Brecht, the 2021 wide receiver commit for the Iowa Hawkeyes, which he in most years, he would have been the highest rated commitment for at the wide receiver position in multiple classes. I mean, I cannot remember the last high 3-star, low 4-star wide receiver commitment that Iowa has had. The one that comes off the top of my head would maybe be Tavon Smith. He was decently valued, but certainly not as high as Brody Brecht. And I think that this is a very interesting story, folks. I mean, Brody Brecht has been interviewed by many people regarding baseball, what his decision would be. As Dean said to me yesterday, Brody revealed that if for him to consider skipping playing at Iowa, the numbers would have to be correct. And I do think it is important to note that somebody can draft Brody Brecht and Brody can choose to go to Iowa, and that team still has the rights to him when he's done playing at Iowa. And listen, folks, this is a good problem to have. It really is. But but I'm not going to deny it from an Iowa perspective, from an Iowa fan. I want this dude to come to Iowa. I really do. I think he can be a great football player, especially with the coaching that Iowa has. But there's tons of things to think about. Number one, the impact that playing football has on your body versus baseball. The money, but it's also, and Joel Klatt talks about this a lot, it's also important to note that in baseball, the guys spend, it's usual for guys to spend 3 to 5 years in the minor leagues, and the minor league sucks, guys. It sucks. It is not a fun every story that has been told, being in the minors absolutely sucks. And so that is definitely a low angle of it. But, ultimately, Dean, I think it's going to just come down to, does he think that he can, I think it'll come down to a few things. One, how much does he truly, in his heart of hearts, how much does he love playing football? How much does he think Iowa can help him, not only in football, but baseball as well? And, does he want the college experience? And, I got to say, I'm an advocate for all of it. I think Rick Heller's a good baseball coach. I think I know Kirk Ferentz is one of the best in Kelton Copeland specifically. And I don't think you can get a much better college experience than at the University of Iowa. But this is a very interesting story. And, I got to be honest, Iowa fans, I don't know what Brody is going to choose. And it is interesting with the name, image, and likeness stuff going on now that this is going on. What do you think about this, Dean? What are some of the things that you've thought about with this? If you had to predict if he's going to be on the team next year, what would you think?
Okay, let's start with going through his thought process. Okay, he's looking for a particular number when he gets drafted. He will get drafted, folks.
Right.
He's going to get drafted. We just don't know where. Okay. So he's looking for a particular number. So we don't know what that number is. That's one thing. Of course, minor leaguers don't get paid that much, so his would be a bonus money. I'm sure the bonus money he's looking for. All right. Now, the next thing he's got to consider is does he want a career in the NFL, which, if he's as good at wide receiver and being the highest weighted wide receiver ever to come to Iowa, does he have an NFL future? And would he rather play NFL or would he rather play Major League Baseball? That's something to consider too. And, he can still play baseball at Iowa, and maybe those numbers change when he plays baseball at Iowa. I don't know how they do that with baseball being in the spring, winter, and spring practice. Does that mean he would never be at spring practice?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's been very few people that have been able to do the baseball and football thing. Which I do think is another angle. For me personally, I would not give up one sport so easily. I would think about it very hard. But yeah, Dean. I mean, now the 2 seasons are, if I'm not mistaken, football is in the first part, which would be fall, I believe, and then baseball is in the last part. So while practice may get messed up and things like that, you do have, I'll put it this way, there's more of an opportunity for Brody to play in baseball games and have just more leeway than somebody like Connor, because the sport is back to back for somebody like Connor McCaffrey. But overall, Dean, I think this is really cool. I always say, I think, if you have kids and you're watching this, I think it's crucial for the development, not only as a person, but as an athlete as well, to play multiple sports. And you see, Dean, with these Iowa commits, almost all of them play multiple sports. Looking at the analysis, I don't think there's one commit on this in this 2022 recruiting class that doesn't play more than 2 sports. Two sports is a lot, but most of these guys play 3, which is absolutely remarkable. But there's no doubt about it, Dean. If you play 2 sports in college, it is very difficult, and it takes, quite frankly, not everybody can do it. It's hard enough to play 1 sport in college, and so quite frankly, it takes a very certain type of person who can do both. So, but yeah, Dean, I think he should go to Iowa. I think that is, if I were throwing my 2 cents in it, it would be to go to Iowa, because you can still play baseball. And like we've already said, you can still get drafted and then continue your education at Iowa, even though I'm not saying education is the end all be all when you're going to end up making millions of dollars in a sport. But there is something to college developing you as a person, maturing you, and more importantly, there's something to be said about being around fantastic grown men like Kirk Ferentz, Kelton Copeland, Rick Heller. In all honesty, that's something young men kind of don't have a lot of these days. And if you can get that, it's a huge, huge, huge advantage. So, I think that is the move. But if I had to guess, if I had to guess, I would say I'm 50-50, and I'm leaning towards he would go. He's going to go to Iowa, but you know, the hype keeps growing. The hype keeps growing. He has a game against Fort Dodge, you know.
Yeah.
And from what I've heard, that game is going to be packed. Fort Dodge, Dean, by the way, you know, and fans out there, Fort Dodge is where my family is from. Fort Dump, Iowa. No, I'm Fort Dodge, Iowa. It's Fort Dump is what people jokingly call it. Fort Dodge, Iowa. You know, it's been a couple of years since I've been there. But yeah, the Fort Dodge Dodgers, they're playing the Ankeny baseball team, but you know, quite frankly, I'm rooting for Brody Breck, excuse me. All right.
Is that before you move on, is that a playoff game or is that a regular season game? Because I haven't been following Iowa high school baseball.
Yeah, I thought it was a playoff game, but I don't think it is. I think that this is still a season game, and baseball in Iowa. You know, I would say most folks are not aware of this. Baseball in California for high school sports happens during the school year still at the tail end, like during wrestling and things like that. In Iowa, it happens during the summer. You know, the school year's done and you're playing the season during the summer. I don't know which one I would prefer, but that's just how Iowa does it. So
and what people don't understand is by doing it that way in the summer, that allows them to have eighth graders play on the team if the eighth graders are really good. Yeah. And the graduated seniors can still play.
Thank you for bringing that up. That is absolutely
which is what Brody is doing because he's a graduated senior now.
Exactly. Yeah, that is kind of wild to think about. You know, he's pretty much a grown man playing baseball right now in high school, but that's how they do it. And other teams can, you know, it's not like it's illegal for them to have somebody like Brody. So, and by the way, if you don't know, Brody is almost throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastball. That is just, it's insane, folks. It just shows that these athletes truly are like top 2-3% of the entire population. And it is just remarkable. All right, Dean. I wanted to touch on this a little bit. The name, image, and likeness story that, you know, Jordan Bohannon retweeted pretty emphatically. I believe it was Justice Kavanaugh who, you know, gave his statement on this ruling. And, you know, this was a very, some people describe the NCAA as socialism. That's what some people jokingly call it, because you know, there really is not, and I can't think of a business that gets adults and is able to use their labor, so to speak, without any monetary compensation to the players. And right now, the only people who are being compensated are the coaches. You see these massive contracts for the coaches, which I'm okay with. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I think coaches should get paid. Phil Parker is going to become the first assistant coach in the state of Iowa to be paid $1 million or more. Quite frankly, I'm okay with that. But Dean, this new ruling opens up a whole cascade of things. I'm not sure how everything will be dealt with. You know, you have Title IX, and for folks that don't know what Title IX is, it's a scholarship compensation that basically ends up resulting in women's sports having, you know, a couple more sports in order to keep up with the scholarship of the 85 scholarships that football has. It's a way of equalizing the playing field. Some people like Title IX, some people don't. I don't really care to get into that right now, but this is very, very interesting. I don't know how that will be taken care of. I do think that there's going to be a ton of lawsuits that will come forth. And I think as far as Iowa is concerned, I think most Iowa fans are concerned about this. I don't think that Iowa fans look at this as a positive for their program. With Iowa, it makes it harder for them to get some of the top in-state talent. And I'll give an example. The five-star, there's a five-star prospect, Omaha Baliu, who lives in Waukee. Not anymore. He transferred to a school in Florida. But a guy like him, it becomes very difficult with universities being able to pay players. It becomes difficult for a school like Iowa to compete for a guy like that's talent when other schools have bigger donors and have people who care more, maybe not care more, but people with more money that are willing to put that money into the program and get some out of it. I've also heard that if something to the tale of if you pay, let's say Jordan Bohannon gets paid $5,000, you also have to pay other athletes $5,000. I don't know how true that is, but in general, I think that the ruling makes this more confusing than it answers questions. I do think it becomes difficult for Iowa. Now, on the flip side, Dean, if Iowa were to get on this right now and start forming together a group of people who go out and try and get donation money from people and raise the funds, I do think that the University of Iowa has the people to take care of players. The last thing I would say is I'm not sure that this will help somebody like Jordan Bohannon in the way that he thinks it will. I think that most players think that if the name, image, and likeness is taken care of, that they will get thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm not sure that that's the case with Title IX and things like that. And while men's basketball and football are the top two revenue making sports at any school, the way that the laws are put into place, I just don't think it's as simple as, okay, my name is Tyler Cook or Jabo. This is what I'm worth. Okay, Iowa, pay me that. I'm not sure that it is as simple as that, and I don't know how much it will benefit them. I really, really don't. Dean, before I read this article, what are some of your thoughts on the name, image, and likeness right now?
Okay. Well, first of all, my understanding is that the universities wouldn't, under this law, would not be paying the athletes directly. They would get some extra benefits for their education and stuff like that, But my understanding is that they would be able to like do a commercial, using their name, or like what Luka Garza did right after the season ended. I forget what they called that little digital thing he did, auction.
Yeah, he auctioned off. You're right. I forget what it's called, but he auctioned off like a basketball card of him, and it made good money.
Yeah, digital baseball card. Yeah, that's what it's called. But anyway, so because Luka's career was done at Iowa, he was allowed to do that. And that's the kind of things you're probably going to see in the future, where these guys can make some money that way using their name and image. And like I said, this whole thing is confusing. I'm not, like I said, I don't know if the universities can pay them directly.
Yeah.
Maybe they can pay them a stipend, for weekly groceries and stuff like that. But I do know that they feed these guys well during the season.
Dean, some of these guys, apparently some of these, and this was not the case when I was playing, there are sport specific apartment buildings where only the basketball team stays there, and maybe like the team managers or something like that, and they have a private chef there helping them out, and listen, I'm not saying that that's a problem, but it is pretty remarkable. It really is, the benefits that they get. But as you said, Dean, I think the example that you gave, and I'll go a step further. Let's say a car lot wants to use Jordan Bohannon's name to sell some cars. They can in the future, what is expected is that somebody like Jabo could hammer out a deal with them and then sell the car while they're still going to the school. So, there's a lot of questions here still that, and I'm just going to read this real quick. This is from forthewin.com. It said, we had some big news today from the Supreme Court as it dealt a big blow to the NCAA by unanimously siding with a group of former athletes in a landmark antitrust case surrounding limited compensation by the NCAA, which makes billions of dollars from athletes while kicking them some crumbs along the way. I think that's well said. I think that is well said, and it is very, very true. On a side note, I did find it kind of funny that some of the people who I know absolutely went after Brett Kavanaugh, and I'm not saying one thing or another with that, but the same folks, a lot of the same folks were in his corner saying, woo, 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 for the ruling. It's just, it's pretty interesting how stuff like that works. But anyways, let's continue. Let's dig into this and find out what it really means. Is this a death blow to the NCAA? In a word, no. Well, not right now, at least. This does set up for some significant changes in the future. And this is what ESPN said. It's tremendous to win this 9-0. Hopefully, it will be the major next step on the road to a true, fair, competitive system for these athletes. It should have positive effects immediately on NIL, or name, image, and likeness. We look forward to a world that's better for college athletes today than what it was yesterday, Jeffrey Kessler told ESPN. And just one more little thing here. Justice Brett Kavanaugh had a scathing message for the NCAA. And this is what he said. He said, nowhere else in America can businesses get away with agreeing not to pay their workers a fair market rate on the theory that their product is defined by not paying their workers as a fair market rate. Now, I do want to say something here. And this is what I was talking about with the Title IX stuff, okay? The fairness argument, okay? If it was all about fairness, then quite frankly, the only people that would be getting money with this would be football and men's basketball, because they are the only ones that in most schools that are producing a profit. And that goes for when I played water polo. We didn't make a profit. Are you joking? So that's just, and I don't know how this will deal with folks that make the argument, hey, it is your job to help us out, and it's not our fault that maybe people don't pay attention to our sport as much. So even with this, you still have to help us out. I don't know how that's going to work out. Anyways, and under ordinary principles of antitrust law, it is not evident why college sports should be any different. The NCAA is not above the law. So there you have it, folks. I think that's a pretty good summation of what me and Dean are talking about here. Listen, again, I don't know how this is going to get answered. I think that that some of the folks who say fairness and this and this and this are the same folks who are going to be yelling and saying, why are we not receiving the same amount of money as, I'll get, maybe an example would be, let's say somebody on the women's basketball team says, says, why am I not getting the same pay as Jordan Bohannon for his car deal? For my car deal, I made less than Jordan. Well, most people understand that within a market, whether you're a man or a woman, it doesn't necessarily matter. Your name has certain qualities attached to it, and it's worth more money sometimes. And those type of things, I'm uncomfortable right now even talking about it. So think about what is going to be in the future, and mark my words, that is going to happen. So there are a lot of questions that still remain here, and I don't necessarily have the answers. Dean, what do you think here?
Okay, well, as I said in a post yesterday, I feel like Iowa legislation had a chance to give their universities an edge in recruiting, and they blew it by not dealing with it. I think they voted they didn't want to deal with it this year. They wanted the NCAA to deal with it. But when you look further into this particular article that we're reading,
yeah,
the NCAA wants the federal government to get involved and do it. So what you got is you got states not willing to do anything because they want the NCAA to do it,
and they're passing the puck to the federal government.
Yeah, and the NCAA wants a blanket law covered by federal law, but they don't want to deal with it. So what's going to happen? Okay, the NCAA is supposed to meet this week, so this next coming week, or maybe this week yet. So let's see what they're going to do. Nothing's going to come about it. They're not going to say on July 1st, name, image, and likeness is in full effect for all schools, because they got to come up with a plan first. And we know how the NCAA drags their feet about everything. The plan will probably be 2 years down the road before they get their act together. And so,
absolutely correct.
So, like I said, after looking at this closer, I don't think we're at a recruiting disadvantage yet.
Right.
But it could be in a couple of years as more states now look at this and want to jump on board and protect their schools. Like, you and I live in California. I thought California had already passed the name, image, likeness, but they're not on the list. So I don't know what happened to that.
Really? They're not? I was not aware of that, but that's good information to know. And yeah, Dean, I agree with you. I think Iowa will do fine. Listen, at the end of the day, Iowa still has businesses. Iowa still has many wealthy people that can, if they want to maybe pay for a position for a top rated player, I think Iowa has the people to do that. Now over a long period of time, I don't know how it would affect all the sports within Iowa, within the University of Iowa, but I got to say, Dean, this is very, very interesting. And, part of me is like, with regards to the questions and answers, would it have just been better to have what the NCAA had before this 9-0 decision? But no, you can't have that. It's just the free labor and things of that nature. Nowhere else in the world would that be acceptable besides the NCAA. And so there you have it. The last thing that I want to read with regards to this, and then we're going to get going here. Does this mean players are going to get paid a salary now? No. This could, however, lead schools to paying athletes more money for educational purposes. So, schools can say, hey, we think it costs $100,000 to go here, when in reality, maybe it costs $25,000, I don't know, and you get an access of $75,000. That they can do that, So this is extraordinary. This is very interesting. And, wouldn't it be something if this actually helps Iowa? I think there is an avenue for that. I don't think it's as simple as, well, Iowa is in trouble with this. I don't think it's that simple. I've already named two people who are very, very wealthy and influential people in Tom Arnold and Ashton Kutcher. So, who knows? All right, Dean, we will come back to this story in the future when there's more information here.
Mhm.
I do want to end with this. With COVID happening, the University of Iowa decided that, they couldn't take any more losses, and alcohol sales are coming to Kinnick. And for that matter, Carver Hawkeye Arena, which I have never been. I'm in favor. I don't really have a problem with it. I think most fans were in favor of it. It does seem kind of silly that Iowa fans can get loaded outside of the stadium, but once they get in the stadium, they can't drink anymore. It does, and the one Iowa game I went to, people were loaded, and that's just the way it is. That's at the end of the day, you have to expect adults to be responsible and allow adults to be in charge of their behaviors and live with the consequences if they make a bad choice and things like that. So I think this is good for Iowa, and I hope it stays. Dean, are you in favor of this or what?
Yeah, I'm in favor of it. Especially since because of COVID, it sounds like the university is going to limit tailgating.
Really?
A little, yeah. They're gonna like 6 hours. You can only start tailgating 6 hours before the game. I think this year is what they're talking about. And so something like let's say when we play Penn State this year, probably be a night game.
Yeah.
Okay. 6 hours before night game. Let's say it's 7 o'clock kickoff their time. So that means they can only get in the parking lots at 1 o'clock.
Right.
Start tailgating. That's not the Iowa way. Iowa way is they start moving in the night before and start tailgating.
4 a.m, they're there taking at 4 a.m, Iowa Hawkeye fans are there taking whiskey shots, fireball shots, drinking beer as chasers. That's the way it goes. I thought it was absolutely awesome when I went down there. It was one of the coolest things I had ever seen, and I can't wait to go back to an Iowa game and get more content, get content and also just enjoy the game. I think, quite frankly, you guys are starving for Iowa Hawkeye content, and I get it. I'm the same way. The last thing I want to mention before we head out of here is the 12-team playoff that does seem like it's going to happen. And in my view, I think that is a positive thing for the Hawkeyes. I don't think it's necessarily necessary to do. I don't know if it will help college football as a whole, but for Iowa, if Iowa had made the college football playoff in 2015, they would be that much further along in becoming a blue blood type program, because the reality is that being able to say that you made a college football playoff versus saying you played in the Rose Bowl, even though the Rose Bowl is nice, being able to say you played in the college football playoff is a little bit nicer. So, it will be interesting, and it is fun. It is cool when people put out the brackets of what would have been in years past and what would be this year. And wouldn't that be something if 2 schools from the state of Iowa make it? But I have a funny feeling Iowa State is not as good as people think. So, but we shall see when the season gets here. Dean, what are we, 70 days away? It's awesome. I'm excited. I know you are. And we still have a ton of Iowa sports. Well, not sports, but Iowa football to get to with camp coming up. And last but not least, the June 25th official visit recruiting weekend. Hopefully Iowa gets some nice commitments, and I'm looking forward to that. I fully expect for most of their class to be completed after this weekend, or maybe a week after this weekend. Dean, any final words before we head out of here, buddy?
Yeah, let me just touch on those little subjects real quick.
Do it.
Okay. Yeah, we've only got 5 commits right now for the football team, but we do expect that to change greatly after this weekend. especially since most of the ones we're after wanted to take visits to the other schools. So,
Right.
so they're going to find out that Iowa's the best place to be. Okay. Second of all, some good things are on the horizon. I mean, we're not going to be in the dead period much longer because, like I said, we'll have some recruiting news to talk about.
Right.
Also, in July 23rd, the Big Ten meetings are coming back. So Iowa, I think, is scheduled July 23rd to be on the Big Ten media. And we can kind of speculate what three he always takes three football players with him.
Yep.
Which three do you think he'll take this year? We can talk about that in the next couple episodes. You know, think about that.
Here are the people who are are expected to be on campus for the official visit weekend. And, you know, it's a nice list, Dean, a very nice list. And yes, Iowa fans, Dean's absolutely right. Once Big Ten Media Days start, that's one of the best parts of the year because speculation is wild. Recruiting is in full-fledged. It truly is one of the best times of year, and, you know, because there's still hope. The reality is Iowa could go into week 3 as 1 win and 2 losses, even though we saw this past year being 0-2, that you can still finish strong. But you know, within 1-2 weeks, your whole season can be done. So when the media day is, it's just wild with expectation and excitement. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me. And I do want to mention going to 247hawkeye.com. We do record this every Wednesday, the NHA Podcast, and it is crazy important when you guys share the podcast or the YouTube video from Nolan Hawkeye Anthony. I do hope that you consider hitting the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Again, Nolan Hawkeye Anthony, and like and comment, because this is a way for me and my partner Dean, who live all the way out here in California, to have a conversation with you and talk about Iowa Hawkeye sports, which we love. Dean, thank you so much for hanging with me. I can't wait for next week. And I hope you Hawkeyes have a great rest of your week. Remember, folks, DBAP, don't be a pussy willow, and facts are feelings because your feelings don't matter. Go Hawks.
Bye.